Everyone wants change, but few are willing to face the war it requires. The war between who you are and who you could become. The truth is, no one is coming to save you, no one is going to wake you up, and no one is going to hand you motivation. You must create it. You must force yourself to take action, even when you do not feel like it. Especially when you do not feel like it. This audiobook is not about motivation that fades after a few hours. It is about transformation that rewires how you think, move, and show up every single day. You will learn the psychology behind discipline, how to destroy resistance, and how to rebuild yourself into someone who no longer waits for the right moment, because you become the moment. If you have ever felt stuck, lost, or trapped by your own hesitation, listen until the end. By the time you finish, you will not only understand how to take action every day, you will feel incapable of sitting still when your purpose calls. Chapter 1. The Battle Within: Why You Resist Action. Every person who has ever wanted to change their life has felt the same battle. You wake up with a plan, full of intention, telling yourself that today will be different. But as the hours pass, that voice inside you begins to whisper excuses. You convince yourself that it is not the right time, that you need more energy, that you will start tomorrow. You begin to feel guilty for not doing what you said you would, and yet you still do nothing. This is the battle within. It is not laziness. It is not weakness. It is a deeply human conflict between two parts of your mind. One part craves comfort. The other part demands growth. Your comfort mind is ancient. It evolved to protect you from risk, pain, and uncertainty. Its only goal is to keep you safe. To your brain, comfort equals survival. Growth, on the other hand, feels like danger. Every time you push yourself to take action, that old part of your mind interprets it as a threat. It whispers that you should wait, that it is better to rest, that it is okay to stay where you are. This is why change feels so hard. You are not just fighting a bad habit. You are wrestling with biology. Most people lose this battle not because they lack motivation, but because they do not understand what they are facing. They believe that discipline should feel easy. They imagine that successful people wake up full of energy every day. The truth is that they feel the same resistance you do. The difference is that they act anyway. They have made peace with discomfort. They have learned to move forward even when every part of them wants to stop. If you want to force yourself to take action, begin with this truth. Your mind will choose what feels safe over what feels right. It will prefer the familiar even when the familiar is painful. That is why people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and habits that slowly destroy them. The pain of change appears greater than the pain of staying the same. The moment you recognize that comfort is not safety, that it is stagnation, you begin to take your power back. The battle within is not about removing fear or doubt. It is about learning to act despite them. Think of every moment you hesitated, the project you did not start, the message you did not send, the workout you skipped. Each time your mind presented a simple lie. Not now, but later never comes. There is no perfect moment. There is only now, and now is where your life is built or wasted. Every small act of resistance you overcome is a victory that rewires your brain for action. One of the greatest mistakes people make is waiting to feel ready. Readiness is an illusion. You will never feel fully prepared to change your life, because change means stepping into the unknown. You cannot think your way into action. You act your way into confidence. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. The moment you take the first small step, your brain begins to adapt. It stops fighting you and starts working for you. Momentum replaces hesitation. Logic helps, but emotion moves you. The same brain that fears discomfort is also driven by meaning. When you give your actions a purpose that matters deeply to you, discipline becomes devotion. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stopped resisting my own potential? Who could I become if I stopped negotiating with my excuses? The more vivid your vision, the stronger your drive. Make your purpose louder than your fear. Understand that your mind is not your enemy. It is simply untrained. You have spent years reinforcing avoidance through small acts of procrastination. Each time you avoided discomfort, your brain learned that avoidance brings relief. Now you must reverse that pattern by teaching your brain that action brings reward. Start small, stay consistent, and celebrate every step forward. The key is repetition. Your brain does not change through intensity. It changes through consistency. When you begin to act despite resistance, something powerful happens. The voice of hesitation grows quieter. You start to notice how your energy changes after action. You feel alive, focused, and proud. You realize that the hardest part was never the work itself. It was the moment before you began. Every time you start, you weaken the old identity that keeps you stuck. You stop being the person who overthinks and start becoming the person who moves. There is a saying that pain is the price of progress. Every step toward your potential will cost you something, comfort, certainty, or ease. The reward is always greater: freedom, power, and pride. When you learn to see discomfort as a signal of growth rather than danger, you flip the switch in your mind. What once scared you now excites you. What once drained you now fuels you. Forcing yourself to take action every day is not about becoming emotionless or robotic. It is about becoming aware. You learn to see your resistance, name it, and act anyway. You stop running from fear and start walking with it. You stop seeking motivation and start creating momentum. You stop waiting to feel different and start becoming different. In time, what was once forced becomes natural. The actions that once felt impossible become automatic. You begin to trust yourself, and that trust builds self-respect. Self-respect builds identity, and identity builds momentum. You become the kind of person who does what needs to be done, regardless of how it feels. That is the moment the battle within shifts in your favor. Every day will still bring resistance, but now you will recognize it for what it is. It is proof that you are growing. Each time you feel hesitation, remember that it is the voice of the old you trying to survive. Smile at it and move forward anyway. You are not destroying yourself. You are upgrading yourself. The discomfort you feel is transformation in progress. The battle within never truly ends, but it does evolve. As you grow stronger, your resistance becomes quieter. Your focus becomes sharper. Your relationship with action becomes natural. You stop needing to force yourself because discipline becomes your language. The moment you act without hesitation, you realize a deeper truth. You were not fighting your mind. You were training it to serve you. Transformation begins here, not in waiting for the perfect plan, not in another round of inspiration. It begins in one simple and consistent decision. Move. Move when it is uncomfortable. Move when it is uncertain. Move when it feels impossible. Once you do, the battle within no longer controls you. You command it, and that is when the real you begins to emerge. Chapter 2. The Myth of Motivation. Everywhere you look, people talk about motivation as if it were the key to success. Social media feeds overflow with quotes about staying inspired. Videos promise to ignite your drive. Books tell you to find your why. And yet, after the video ends, after the words fade, most people still do not take action. They wait for another spark, another surge of emotion, another reason to start. This is the trap of motivation. It feels good in the moment, but it fades as quickly as it comes. Motivation is a myth because it is based on emotion, and emotion is unstable. You will not feel powerful every day. You will not wake up inspired every morning. There will be days when your mind is heavy, when your energy is low, when everything inside you whispers to stay still. If your success depends on feeling ready, you will never build momentum. The people who change their lives are not the ones who wait to feel like it. They are the ones who act regardless of how they feel. The truth is that motivation is often the reward for action, not the source of it. Think about how you feel after finishing a workout, after sending that difficult email, after finally starting the task you avoided. You feel lighter, stronger, more focused. You feel motivated. The feeling follows the movement. But before that first step, motivation does not exist. You create it by moving. The problem is that most people reverse the order. They tell themselves they need to feel motivated to move, but they have it backwards. Movement creates momentum, and momentum creates motivation. Waiting for motivation is like waiting for the weather to be perfect before going outside. You cannot control the weather, but you can decide to step out anyway. If you want to force yourself to take action every day, you must understand that consistency is stronger than motivation. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Discipline asks, is it necessary? Motivation is emotion-driven. Discipline is value-driven. The difference is everything. Emotion fades, but values endure. When your actions are anchored in purpose, not mood, you become unstoppable. Motivation also feeds a hidden expectation that work should feel exciting, that growth should feel like passion every day. But progress rarely feels romantic. Most of the time it is repetitive, quiet, and unglamorous. Growth hides in the small, consistent choices no one applauds you for. Motivation disappears in those moments, but discipline carries you through them. That is why most people quit. They mistake boredom for failure. But boredom is not failure. It is proof that you are moving forward. The myth of motivation also gives people permission to delay. It becomes an excuse disguised as a noble concept. I am just waiting for the right mindset. I need to be in the right headspace. I will start when I feel ready. These statements sound wise, but they are traps. The right moment is an illusion. There is no right moment, only the one in front of you. You can shape it by acting, or you can lose it by thinking. Taking action without motivation is uncomfortable at first. It feels unnatural to move when you do not want to. But discomfort is the birthplace of power. Each time you act in the absence of motivation, you send a message to your mind. I am in control. You train your brain to obey direction, not emotion. The first few times are hard, but with repetition, the act of beginning becomes easier. You start to trust yourself. You stop negotiating with your excuses. Here is the paradox. Once you stop waiting for motivation, it starts to show up more often. Because your mind begins to associate action with reward instead of resistance. The more you act, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more you act. It becomes a self-sustaining loop. The key is breaking the first barrier, the resistance to start. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is a fire. Sparks fade, but fires last when you feed them. You feed discipline through systems, structure, and standards. Systems make success predictable. Structure removes decision fatigue. Standards define what you accept from yourself. The people who achieve extraordinary results do not rely on inspiration. They rely on rituals. They have built lives where action is not a choice, it is a habit. Think of motivation like weather and discipline like climate. Weather changes daily, but climate shapes everything. Motivation will come and go, but discipline defines who you are. You cannot control motivation, but you can control your actions. The day you stop chasing motivation and start building discipline is the day you take full control of your life. You must also redefine how you see action. Do not wait for it to feel exciting. Most days it will not, but it will always be meaningful. Every small effort compounds. The email you send today, the workout you complete, the page you write, all of it builds something invisible, momentum. Momentum is not loud. It is quiet strength accumulating over time. When you act consistently, momentum becomes your new motivation. The best way to destroy the myth of motivation is to shift your identity. Stop saying, I need to get motivated. Start saying, I am the kind of person who acts. When you identify as someone who takes action, your behavior follows. You no longer need to feel inspired because action becomes part of who you are. You do not think about brushing your teeth or locking your door. You simply do it. The same can become true for your goals. Motivation may get you started once, but identity keeps you going forever. When you act from identity, effort becomes natural. You no longer rely on emotion, you rely on character. You become the type of person who moves forward because not moving feels wrong. That shift is what separates those who dream from those who achieve. The myth of motivation dies the moment you stop waiting to feel good. You will not always feel ready. You will not always feel confident. You will not always feel strong. But you can always choose to act. Action is not a feeling. It is a decision. Every day you make that decision, you reinforce who you are becoming. So the next time you tell yourself you are not motivated, remind yourself that you do not need to be. You only need to start. Do one small thing. Make one small move. Progress will reward you with energy, and that energy will keep you going. Action first, feeling later. That is the real formula. When you understand that motivation is a myth, you stop chasing it and start mastering yourself. You no longer wait for permission to begin. You create your own momentum. You build a life based on action, not emotion. And in that moment, you realize something profound. Motivation was never missing. It was waiting for you to move. Chapter 3. Identity versus action. Every action you take is a vote for the person you believe yourself to be. You may not realize it, but every decision you make throughout your day quietly shapes your identity. The person who chooses to work out instead of sleep in begins to see themselves as disciplined. The person who writes a single page of their book each night begins to believe they are a writer. The one who avoids the hard conversation starts to see themselves as someone who hides from discomfort. You do not act because of who you are. You become who you act like. People often talk about changing habits as if it were a checklist. Wake up early, work hard, eat clean, stay focused. But real transformation does not begin with a to-do list. It begins with a shift in identity. You cannot force yourself to act consistently if your actions do not align with how you see yourself. You can push for a while, but the mind always returns to what feels familiar. If you see yourself as lazy, even the smallest effort feels like a lie. If you believe you are unmotivated, discipline feels like an act. That is why willpower alone is not enough. Willpower fights your old identity, but identity always wins. You cannot build a new life while clinging to the story of your old self. At some point, you must decide who you are becoming and start living as that person now. Not when you feel ready, not when circumstances change. Now, identity is the foundation of action. Every habit you try to build grows from the soil of how you define yourself. If that definition is weak or outdated, the roots of your new habits will not hold. You can wake up early for a week, but if deep down you still think of yourself as inconsistent, your mind will pull you back into old cycles. The goal is not to pretend you are someone else, but to create a new pattern of truth. You are not lazy. You have just practiced hesitation for too long. You are not undisciplined. You have simply trained yourself to prioritize comfort. Once you see this, you realize you're not broken. You are conditioned. And what has been learned can be unlearned. Begin by observing the stories you tell yourself. Notice the labels that run through your thoughts. I am not a morning person. I'm bad with consistency. I always lose focus. These are not facts. They are scripts. You have repeated them so often that your mind has accepted them as reality. Every time you act, you reinforce that script or rewrite it. The question is, which one are you rehearsing? Changing your identity starts with language. Instead of saying, I am trying to work out, say, I'm becoming someone who takes care of their body. Instead of saying, I'm trying to be productive, say, I'm someone who values progress. The moment you change your language, you begin to reshape the image your brain holds of you. You stop chasing transformation and start embodying it. Action without identity feels forced. Identity without action feels hollow. When they meet, you create alignment. Alignment is when what you believe, what you say, and what you do finally move in the same direction. It is when your actions stop feeling like a struggle and start feeling like an expression of who you are. That is why some people make discipline look effortless. It is not because they are stronger than you. It is because they are aligned. If you want to force yourself to take action every day, you must stop focusing only on what you do and start focusing on who you are becoming through what you do. Each action is not just a task. It is a declaration. When you choose to write instead of scroll, you are not just being productive. You are casting a vote for the identity of a creator. When you go for that run, you are not just exercising. You are reinforcing the identity of someone who honors their health. This is the key. Consistency becomes natural when it feels like self-expression, not self-punishment. Most people fail because they try to act like a disciplined person instead of becoming one. They see discipline as something external, something they must apply with force. But true discipline grows from identity. Is what happens when you stop seeing good habits as chores and start seeing them as choices that reflect your character. Your mind resists action because it fears contradiction. When your current identity does not match your desired behavior, the brain creates tension. This tension is what we call resistance. The fastest way to dissolve it is not by fighting harder, but by updating your self-image. Tell yourself, I am the kind of person who does this, and then act accordingly. Your actions will catch up to your beliefs, and your beliefs will solidify around your actions. You may not believe it at first. That is okay. You do not need to believe it to begin. Belief grows from evidence. Every time you act in alignment with your future self, you provide that evidence. Soon, the action that once felt impossible begins to feel inevitable. The mind no longer fights it, because it now belongs to your identity. Think of identity like a thermostat. It always returns you to what feels normal. If your self-image is set to average effort, no matter how much you push, you will eventually settle back into average. To raise your standard permanently, you must raise the setting. You do that by changing how you see yourself. Here is a truth that most people miss. Transformation is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to who you were before fear, failure, and doubt convinced you to play small. The disciplined, focused, and driven version of you already exists. You are not creating them from nothing. You are uncovering them through action. Each small win removes another layer of limitation. To live this truth, you must be willing to let go of your old story. You cannot keep rehearsing failure and expect to live success. You cannot keep identifying with weakness and expect to act with strength. The moment you stop defending your limitations, your potential expands. So ask yourself right now, who am I when I am at my best? Not when I am afraid, not when I am distracted, but when I am fully alive. What would that version of me do today? What would they think, say, and choose? Start living from that place, even in small ways. That is how you align identity and action. The person you want to become is not waiting somewhere in the future. They are shaped in every present moment where you choose action over comfort. Identity is built through proof, and proof is built through repetition. Each time you follow through on what you said you would do, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. That trust becomes confidence. Confidence becomes character. And character becomes destiny. By now you know the truth. You cannot wait to feel ready, and you cannot rely on motivation. The bridge between who you are and who you want to be is built through aligned action. Every time you move, you are sculpting yourself. Every time you keep a promise, you are rewriting your story. When identity and action become one, you stop forcing yourself. You no longer chase discipline. You live it. You stop saying, I want to become that person, because you already are. The habits that once felt impossible become natural expressions of who you have chosen to be. That is the moment you stop surviving and start creating. That is the moment your life begins to move with power, purpose, and peace. Chapter 4. The Psychology of Resistance. You already know what you should be doing. You know the habits that would make your life better, the routines that would move you forward, the choices that would change everything. And yet, when the moment to act arrives, something invisible holds you back. You feel the weight of hesitation, the pull toward distraction, the sudden flood of excuses. That force has a name. It is resistance. Resistance is not laziness. It is not a flaw in your character. It's an ancient survival mechanism disguised as self-sabotage. Your mind does not see growth and change as progress. It sees them as potential danger. The moment you decide to act, that protective part of your brain begins to whisper reasons to stay where you are. It is trying to keep you safe, but in doing so, it keeps you small. The psychology of resistance is rooted in fear. Not fear of failure, as most people believe, but fear of transformation. Change means uncertainty, and uncertainty feels unsafe. Your brain wants predictable outcomes. Even when your current situation is painful, it is familiar, and the mind equates familiarity with safety. This is why people cling to old habits, toxic relationships, and unfulfilling routines. They would rather stay in the discomfort they know than face the unknown that might free them. Every time you take action, you challenge that safety system. You tell your mind, "We are going somewhere new." The mind resists because it cannot predict what comes next. Resistance shows up as hesitation, fatigue, distraction, or sudden self-doubt. It convinces you to check your phone one more time, to make another cup of coffee, to think about the plan instead of executing it. It speaks in the language of delay. To overcome resistance, you must first see it clearly. When you name it, you separate yourself from it. Most people let resistance blend into their identity. They say things like, "I am lazy," or "I am not motivated." But that is not true. You are not lazy. You are resisting. You are not unmotivated. You are afraid. When you call resistance by its name, it loses power. It becomes something you can observe instead of something you obey. Understanding resistance means understanding that it is strongest right before you begin. The moment before you act is where the tension peaks. Once you start, the resistance weakens. That is why the hardest part of any task is the beginning. Your brain imagines the discomfort ahead, exaggerates the difficulty, and invents reasons to postpone. But the moment you take even the smallest action, momentum breaks the illusion. You realize it was never as hard as you thought. There is a simple truth about resistance. It cannot survive movement. It thrives in thought but dies in action. When you move, you shift your attention from fear to flow. You stop feeding the stories that keep you stuck. You enter a new mental state where doing becomes easier than thinking. This is why starting is more powerful than planning. You cannot think your way out of resistance. You must act your way through it. Every small step you take rewires your brain's relationship with discomfort. Over time, you begin to associate effort with reward instead of fear. That is how resistance transforms into resilience. However, resistance does not disappear entirely. It evolves as you do. Each new level of growth introduces a new layer of resistance. The stronger you become, the more subtle it becomes. It may disguise itself as perfectionism, over-planning, or burnout. It may whisper that you have done enough, or that you deserve a break. But beneath every version of resistance lies the same question. What if I fail? To answer that question, you must redefine failure. Failure is not evidence that you are not good enough. It is proof that you are alive, that you are trying, that you are pushing boundaries. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the path to it. Once you accept that, resistance loses one of its favorite weapons. Another way to weaken resistance is through structure. When your actions are tied to routine, you remove the need for constant decision-making. The mind resists choice more than it resists effort. Every time you ask, "Should I work out today?" you give resistance an opening to argue. But when action becomes non-negotiable, the argument ends before it begins. Create structure not to restrict yourself, but to protect your progress. Your environment also plays a role. Resistance feeds on distraction. The more clutter, noise, and stimulation around you, the easier it is for your mind to justify avoidance. Simplify your space, limit your options, and create friction between yourself and your distractions. When resistance has fewer places to hide, it weakens. Perhaps the most powerful way to dissolve resistance is through purpose. When your actions are connected to something greater than your comfort, you will endure almost anything. Discipline feels heavy when it is self-centered, but it becomes light when it serves something meaningful. Ask yourself why this matters. Why do you want to change? What is at stake if you stay the same? Purpose transforms resistance into fuel. You must also understand that resistance is not the enemy. It is a signal. It appears in front of everything important. It is the gatekeeper to your growth. The greater the resistance, the greater the potential on the other side. When you feel it rise inside you, it means you are moving towards something that matters. Instead of running from it, use it as a compass. Move toward the things that scare you, because they are the things that will set you free. There will be days when resistance wins. Days when you give in to comfort, when you procrastinate, when you lose focus. Do not turn those moments into self-hatred. Resistance feeds on shame. The more you punish yourself, the stronger it grows. The key is to see those moments as reminders, not failures. You slipped, but you did not stop. You can begin again. Every time you return to action, you weaken the grip of resistance. Over time, you begin to notice a shift. The things that once triggered hesitation now feel natural. The voice of fear grows quiet. You start to feel pulled by your goals instead of pushed by pressure. This is the reward of persistence. You realize that resistance was never an obstacle to avoid. It was a teacher showing you where to grow. The psychology of resistance reveals one final truth. Freedom is not the absence of struggle. It is the mastery of it. You will always feel resistance at the edge of your potential. But once you understand it, it no longer controls you. It becomes the rhythm you dance with, the signal that you are alive and expanding. So the next time you feel the urge to delay, remember this. Resistance is proof that you are standing at the doorway of change. It will whisper every reason to turn back, but your future is waiting on the other side. Take a breath. Take a step. Once you move, resistance loses its grip, and you reclaim your power. Chapter 5. Discomfort is the door. If comfort were the goal of life, no one would ever grow. You would stay where you are, repeating what you know, clinging to what feels easy. But the truth is, every time you have grown, every moment that shaped you, began with discomfort. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is the signal that you are stepping beyond your limits, crossing into new territory where change can finally happen. Most people misunderstand discomfort. They treat it as a warning, a reason to stop. They say things like, "I will start when I feel ready," or "I need to wait until things calm down." But readiness never arrives, and calm rarely lasts. Growth lives in chaos. Progress begins when you choose to walk through the door that most people avoid, the door marked pain, uncertainty, and fear. The human brain is designed to seek safety, not success. It rewards the familiar and punishes the unknown. That is why comfort feels good even when it is destroying you, and discomfort feels threatening even when it is saving you. The path to transformation requires that you rewire your relationship with discomfort. Instead of running from it, you must learn to lean into it, to see it as the doorway to power. Think back to the most meaningful moments in your life. They probably were not easy. The first time you faced rejection, the first time you failed and had to get back up, the first time you pushed your body past what you thought was possible. Each moment was uncomfortable, but each one gave birth to strength, clarity, and confidence. Discomfort, when faced intentionally, becomes the forge that shapes your character. When you avoid discomfort, you also avoid mastery. The musician who stops practicing when their fingers hurt never becomes great. The writer who quits when the words do not flow never finishes the book. The entrepreneur who retreats at the first setback never learns resilience. Discomfort is not a wall, it is a mirror. It reflects the exact areas where you need to grow. The things that make you uncomfortable are not meant to stop you. They are meant to teach you. To transform discomfort into growth, you must first redefine what it means. Most people associate it with danger, but discomfort is not danger. It is data. It tells you that something new is happening, something that challenges the old version of you. When you step into discomfort, your mind stretches, your perspective widens, and your limits expand. This is how evolution happens, one uncomfortable moment at a time. However, embracing discomfort does not mean seeking pain for its own sake. It means understanding that meaningful change always carries a cost. Every version of growth requires the death of a comfort zone. You must let go of who you were to become who you can be. The pain you feel is not punishment, it is the shedding of the old. There is a moment that happens right before a breakthrough. It is the moment when you want to quit the most. Your mind will tell you it is too much, that you are not cut out for it, that maybe this is not the right time. That moment is the test. The discomfort you feel is not a sign of failure, but of progress. It means you are close. Most people turn back right before they reach the threshold. The ones who push through discover that the fear was an illusion guarding their next level. Discomfort has another gift hidden inside it. It reveals truth. When you are comfortable, it is easy to lie to yourself. You can pretend you are doing enough, that you are happy where you are, that you are in control. But discomfort strips away the illusions. It shows you where you are weak, where you are afraid, where you still have work to do. And in that honesty, you find freedom. There are two kinds of discomfort, the kind that drains you and the kind that grows you. The first comes from avoidance, from staying stuck in a situation that does not serve you, from denying what you know you must face. That kind of discomfort is toxic because it comes from inaction. The second kind, the kind that grows you, comes from effort. From leaning into fear, from showing up even when it hurts, from doing the thing you least want to do but know you must. Growth comes from choosing the right discomfort. Pain is unavoidable, but the source of it is up to you. You can suffer from the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. One moves you forward, the other keeps you trapped. The question is not whether you will face discomfort, but whether it will build you or break you. When you start to see discomfort as the door, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I avoid it, and start asking, what is it trying to teach me? Every challenge becomes a message. Every fear becomes feedback. You begin to realize that discomfort is not chaos. It is clarity. It reveals what truly matters to you. When you chase only comfort, you live a small life. You may feel safe, but you will also feel restless. That restlessness is your soul rebelling against stagnation. Comfort kills potential. It whispers that you are fine where you are, while quietly eroding your ambition. The truth is, comfort zones are prisons built from soft walls. You cannot grow inside them because there is no pressure, no resistance, no reason to evolve. The solution is simple but not easy. Choose discomfort daily. Do one thing each day that challenges you. It can be small, a cold shower, a difficult conversation, an extra hour of work, a few minutes of meditation when your mind wants to run. Each time you do, you train your nervous system to stay calm in the presence of challenge. You build emotional endurance. Eventually, what once scared you becomes routine. What once drained you becomes fuel. The more you choose discomfort, the less power it has over you. You begin to trust yourself in the unknown. You realize that fear is not fatal, that struggle does not mean you are failing. It means you are alive, you are learning, you are becoming stronger. Discomfort is not the barrier to success, it is the bridge. The people who live extraordinary lives are not those who avoid pain, but those who walk through it willingly. They understand that ease is the enemy of excellence. Every great story begins with a moment of discomfort, a decision to leave the familiar behind. The next time you feel that tightness in your chest, that hesitation before taking a step forward, pause and remember this. That feeling is the door. Beyond it lies the version of you that you have been trying to reach. You do not have to feel ready, you just have to walk through. Discomfort will never disappear, but your relationship with it can change. Instead of seeing it as something to fear, see it as proof that you are growing. The stronger your tolerance for discomfort, the wider your world becomes. Growth begins at the edge of comfort. Transformation begins the moment you decide to stay when it gets hard, to move when it gets painful, to trust when you cannot yet see the outcome. The secret to progress is not avoiding discomfort, but mastering it. It is realizing that everything you want, confidence, freedom, power, peace, waits on the other side of what scares you. So the next time you feel fear rise, take a deep breath. Smile at the discomfort. Step through the door, because that is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of who you were meant to become. Chapter 6. Micro Wins, Massive Momentum. Most people fail not because they lack the ability to achieve big goals, but because they underestimate the power of small victories. They wait for grand breakthroughs, for life-changing moments, for something that will flip a switch inside them. But transformation rarely happens that way. Progress is built through tiny, consistent actions that seem insignificant in the moment, but compound into something extraordinary over time. Momentum does not come from intensity. It comes from consistency. One small win builds confidence, and confidence builds motion. Every single day that you show up, even in the smallest way, you strengthen the part of you that follows through. Over time, this quiet discipline turns into unstoppable momentum. We live in a world that glorifies the outcome and ignores the process. People celebrate the finish line, but rarely talk about the daily grind that made it possible. They see the success, but not the thousands of small, unseen moments that built it. The truth is, great lives are not made in leaps. They are made in inches. Every small win is a step forward. Every act of effort a brick in the foundation of your future. Micro wins matter because they rewire your brain. Each time you complete a task, no matter how small, you get a hit of accomplishment. This triggers dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, which reinforces the behavior. Over time, your mind begins to associate effort with reward instead of stress. This is how you build momentum from the inside out. You begin to crave progress instead of fearing it. The mistake most people make is trying to do too much too soon. They set huge goals, expecting to change everything overnight. But when the results do not appear instantly, they lose motivation. This creates a destructive loop of high ambition, followed by burnout. The solution is to lower the barrier to action. Start small enough that you cannot fail. If you want to build a habit of writing, start with 5 minutes a day. If you want to work out, start with a single push-up. If you want to meditate, begin with just 1 minute of stillness. The act matters more than the amount. What you are building is not a perfect routine, but proof to yourself that you can show up. Once you have that proof, momentum grows naturally. Think of momentum like a flywheel. At first, it takes enormous effort to move. Every push feels heavy and slow. But with each small turn, it becomes easier. Eventually, the wheel spins on its own with minimal effort. The same principle applies to your habits, your discipline, your goals. Every small win adds energy to the system until movement becomes effortless. The reason most people never reach their potential is that they keep stopping at the beginning. They underestimate how powerful those early, imperfect efforts are. They think small wins do not count, but in reality, small wins are everything. The first step is always the hardest, but it is also the one that changes your identity. When you prove to yourself that you can begin, you unlock the belief that you can continue. One of the greatest truths about action is that it multiplies. When you take one step, your brain begins to look for the next. When you finish one small task, you naturally want to complete another. This creates what psychologists call the progress loop. Your brain is wired to seek completion, so once you begin, it wants to keep going. That is why the hardest part is always starting. Once momentum takes over, the work becomes easier. Micro wins also protect you from perfectionism. When you focus on small progress, you stop obsessing over flawless results. You learn to value the act of showing up more than the outcome. This shift frees you from the constant pressure to perform and allows you to fall in love with the process. Perfection is fragile, but consistency is unbreakable. If you want to force yourself to take action every day, start by lowering your expectations and raising your standards. Lower your expectations of what each day must look like, and raise your standard for showing up regardless. The days you do not feel like it are the most important ones to act. Every small win on those days counts double, because it proves that you are not driven by mood, but by purpose. Momentum is not just physical, it is emotional. Each time you follow through, you build trust with yourself. You stop being the person who says they will change and become the person who does. That trust is priceless. It becomes your foundation, the internal fuel that keeps you moving when motivation fades. To harness momentum, celebrate your progress. Not in a shallow way, but with real gratitude. Take a moment to acknowledge what you did right. Most people only focus on what they did not do. They end each day feeling defeated, blind to the fact that they showed up when they could have quit. When you celebrate small wins, you train your mind to notice progress instead of failure. That shift changes everything. Momentum also requires patience. You cannot rush it. It builds slowly, quietly, and invisibly until one day it explodes into visible success. This is why discipline feels lonely in the beginning. The results are delayed, but the reward is certain. Every small step forward compounds. Every day you show up adds another layer to your strength. The world may not see it yet, but soon it will. The most successful people in any field share one common trait. They understand the power of micro wins. They do not wait for the perfect day. They move even when it feels pointless. They know that consistency always wins in the long game. Success is not one massive decision, but 1,000 tiny choices made with intention. If you ever feel stuck, return to simplicity. Ask yourself, what is one small thing I can do right now to move forward? That is all momentum needs, one small push. Once you start, the energy begins to build. Your brain shifts from hesitation to action, from fear to flow. The more you repeat this cycle, the easier it becomes. Momentum is not magic. It is the natural result of showing up. When you commit to small wins every day, you eventually reach a point where action feels automatic. You no longer need to push yourself. You are pulled forward by your own rhythm. This is the freedom you are working toward, the moment when discipline becomes effortless, when progress becomes your default state. Remember this truth. You do not need massive change to transform your life. You just need consistent motion. Every small step you take builds momentum. Every small win carries you closer to the person you were meant to become. So start small, stay steady, and keep moving. Because once momentum is on your side, even the smallest push can change your entire direction. Chapter 7. Emotion versus execution. Emotion is the most powerful force in the human experience. It can make you leap toward your goals with fire in your chest, or it can chain you to the ground when fear or doubt takes over. The problem is that most people allow emotion to dictate their actions. They only move when they feel inspired, confident, or excited. But the truth is, success is built on execution, not emotion. The person who acts despite their feelings will always outgrow the one who waits for the perfect mood. You have felt this before. You wake up with plans, telling yourself that today will be different. But the moment you feel tired, anxious, or unmotivated, you postpone. You tell yourself you will start when you feel better. That moment rarely comes. Waiting for the right emotion to take action is like waiting for the weather to be perfect before you go outside. You end up watching life from the window instead of living it. Your emotions are real, but they are not reliable. They are waves that rise and fall, depending on countless invisible factors. Sleep, food, hormones, environment, and thoughts all shape how you feel in any given moment. If your actions depend on those shifting tides, your progress will always be inconsistent. This is why discipline must lead and emotion must follow. Emotion is meant to be felt, not obeyed. You can acknowledge that you are tired and still move. You can recognize fear and still take the step. You can feel doubt and still show up. The difference between people who achieve and people who do not is not that one feels more motivated. It is that one acts regardless of emotion. The secret to mastery is emotional neutrality. It means you stop giving every feeling the power to control you. You begin to see your emotions as weather patterns. They can shift, but they do not decide your direction. When it rains, you carry an umbrella and keep walking. When you feel unmotivated, you follow your routine anyway. You act because it is what needs to be done, not because you feel like it. This does not mean suppressing your emotions. It means honoring them without letting them lead. Feel them, understand them, but do not let them write the script of your life. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness behind them. That awareness gives you choice, and choice gives you freedom. Emotional control does not mean you never feel low, angry, or afraid. It means you refuse to let those emotions decide your behavior. You no longer let momentary feelings sabotage long-term goals. The more you practice acting through discomfort, the more your brain learns that emotion is not danger. You start to move without hesitation, even when fear whispers in your ear. This is what separates the disciplined from the distracted. Most people act like victims of their emotions. They let moods dictate effort, and they let anxiety become an excuse. But emotions are energy, and energy can be redirected. The same emotion that fuels fear can fuel focus. The same intensity that drives anger can drive determination. The difference lies in where you aim it. You can feel overwhelmed and still organize your day. You can feel insecure and still speak your truth. You can feel uninspired and still do the work. Every time you do, you train your nervous system to act without emotional permission. That is true strength, to keep moving even when your emotions beg you to stop. When you detach your actions from your feelings, you become consistent. Consistency is not about always being motivated. It is about always showing up. Every time you execute in spite of emotion, you reinforce a new identity, the identity of someone reliable, stable, and unstoppable. Think of the greatest athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs. Do you think they wake up motivated every day? They do not. What they have mastered is the art of execution without emotion. They follow a system. They respect their process. They have built a relationship with discomfort that allows them to perform under any condition. You can build that same resilience. Start by noticing when emotion tries to interfere. You might feel that inner voice saying, "Not today," or "I will do it later." In that moment, take a breath and act anyway. You do not need to feel like it. You just need to begin. Action creates emotion. Movement generates momentum. When you move, your mood changes naturally. This is one of the greatest truths about human behavior. Emotion follows motion. People think they need to feel motivated to move, but it works the other way around. You feel motivated because you moved. You feel confident because you acted. You feel inspired because you created something. Action is the spark that lights emotion, not the other way around. The next time you do not feel like working out, start with 5 minutes. The next time you do not feel like writing, type 1 sentence. The next time you do not feel like getting up, count down from 5 and move. Once you start, the resistance loses its grip. Emotion begins to shift and you reclaim control. When you make execution your default, you gain emotional stability. You no longer live at the mercy of highs and lows. You stop waiting for perfect days because you know that imperfect action beats perfect intention. Every small act of consistency rewires your self-image. You begin to trust yourself. You realize that feelings are temporary, but results are permanent. This does not mean you become cold or robotic. It means you become grounded. You can still feel deeply, but you no longer drown in those feelings. You learn to experience emotion without surrendering to it. You realize that courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement through it. Over time, you will notice something profound. When you act consistently regardless of emotion, your emotions begin to align with your actions. You start to feel good because you are doing good. You feel proud because you are following through. You feel peaceful because you are no longer battling yourself. Emotion becomes your ally instead of your enemy. The balance between emotion and execution is what defines mastery. You are not here to eliminate emotion, but to guide it. You are not here to feel ready, but to create readiness through movement. The moment you act despite hesitation, you send a message to your subconscious. I am in control. That message, repeated daily, rewires your entire identity. So the next time you do not feel like it, remember this truth. Your feelings are visitors. They come and go, but your goals remain. Do not let temporary emotions make permanent decisions. Take the step even if your hands shake. Do the work even if your heart doubts. Act first, feel later, because the person who executes without waiting for perfect emotion is the one who builds a life of freedom, confidence, and unstoppable progress. Chapter 8. Building Unbreakable Habits. Habits shape your life more than your goals do. Goals set your direction, but habits determine your destination. What you do once in a while changes little. What you do every day changes everything. The truth is, your habits are the invisible architecture of your future. They quietly decide who you become. If your habits are weak, your potential stays trapped. But if your habits are strong, even small actions lead to massive transformation over time. Most people fail to build habits because they rely on emotion instead of structure. They start strong, filled with motivation, but the moment life gets hard, they stop. They tell themselves they lack discipline, when in reality they lack a system. Habits are not built on willpower. They are built on design. You must create an environment and a routine that make the right actions automatic and the wrong ones difficult. Discipline is not about doing extraordinary things. It is about doing ordinary things with consistency. It is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It is repetition in silence, the kind of repetition that turns effort into instinct. When you repeat a behavior long enough, it becomes part of who you are. You no longer have to think about it. It becomes natural, effortless, almost automatic. That is the secret to freedom. It is when doing the right thing becomes easier than doing the wrong thing. Habits are not formed overnight. They are carved into your identity, one small choice at a time. Every time you follow through, even in a small way, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. One workout is a vote for strength. 1 hour of focus is a vote for success. One act of honesty is a vote for integrity. Each vote reinforces your identity until it becomes your default. The most powerful way to build unbreakable habits is to focus on identity, not outcomes. Most people say, I want to lose weight, or I want to make more money. But those are results. True transformation starts when you ask, what kind of person achieves those results? Instead of chasing outcomes, start embodying the identity. The goal is not to read 100 books, but to become a reader. Not to run a marathon, but to become a runner. Not to meditate every day, but to become someone who values stillness. When identity leads, consistency follows. To make habits stick, simplicity is your greatest ally. Complexity kills consistency. Most people make the mistake of designing perfect plans that require perfect conditions. They map out every detail and then freeze when things do not go as planned. But real progress is built on small, sustainable steps that fit into your daily life. Start small enough that you cannot fail. If you want to build a habit of journaling, write 1 sentence. If you want to build a habit of exercise, start with 10 minutes. The size does not matter. The repetition does. Small wins create trust, and trust fuels momentum. Environment is another critical piece of the habit puzzle. Your surroundings shape your behavior more than motivation ever will. If your environment makes the wrong choice easy, you will eventually give in. If it makes the right choice easy, you will stay consistent without effort. Set up your space to support your habits. Remove distractions. Keep what serves your goals within reach. Make it hard to fail and easy to succeed. Every habit is a cue, a behavior, and a reward. The cue triggers the behavior, and the behavior produces a reward. To create a habit, you must make the cue obvious, the behavior simple, and the reward satisfying. This is how you train your brain to crave discipline. For example, if you want to start meditating, set your mat in plain sight. Sit for 2 minutes. When you finish, reward yourself with something small like a deep breath or a sip of your favorite drink. The brain learns that discipline feels good, not restrictive. The challenge is that most people confuse feeling good with being good. They chase temporary pleasure instead of long-term fulfillment. Every bad habit offers an instant reward with a delayed cost. Every good habit offers a delayed reward with an instant cost. That is why growth feels hard at first. But over time, the balance flips. The things that once required discipline become the source of joy. Exercise becomes energizing. Reading becomes calming. Work becomes fulfilling. To make habits unbreakable, remove decision fatigue. The more choices you make in a day, the more mental energy you drain. Build routines that remove unnecessary decisions. Eat similar breakfasts. Schedule your workouts at the same time. Do the most important task first. Routine is not restriction. It is liberation. When your actions become predictable, your results become inevitable. Accountability strengthens habits. Tell someone your goal or track your progress publicly. We rise to the standards of the people who watch us. But the most powerful form of accountability is internal. It is the quiet pride of keeping promises to yourself. Each time you follow through, you build self-respect. You stop needing external validation because your word to yourself becomes sacred. There will be days when your habits feel heavy. You will be tempted to skip them. You will convince yourself that one missed day will not matter. But habits are not built on what you do occasionally. They are built on what you do when you least want to. The hardest days matter most because they prove that your discipline is stronger than your mood. Each time you show up when it is inconvenient, you make your habit harder to break. Consistency beats intensity. It's better to do something small every day than something huge once in a while. The compounding effect of consistency is invisible at first, but unstoppable in the end. One drop of water means nothing, but enough drops create a river. Habits are that river. They carve paths through your life until they reshape your identity. If you ever struggle to stay consistent, remind yourself of your why. Why did you start? Who are you becoming? Purpose breathes life into repetition. Without it, even good habits feel empty. With it, even hard habits feel sacred. When your habits align with your purpose, discipline becomes devotion. The ultimate goal of building unbreakable habits is not perfection. It is transformation. It is becoming someone you can count on, someone who acts with integrity even when no one is watching. It is about crafting a life that runs on momentum instead of resistance. The person who builds strong habits becomes unstoppable because they no longer depend on fleeting motivation. They live with structure, clarity, and peace, so build slowly but build deliberately. Design your environment, simplify your actions, and repeat your routines until they become part of who you are. Habits are not chains that trap you. They are anchors that ground you. They are the proof that you can build a new life from the inside out. When you master your habits, you master your future. You stop reacting and start creating. You move from chaos to control. You become the architect of your destiny, one small action at a time. That is what it means to be unbreakable. Chapter 9. The War Against Comfort. Comfort feels safe, but it is one of the most dangerous traps you will ever face. It disguises itself as peace, but it quietly steals your ambition, your hunger, and your potential. Comfort whispers that you are fine where you are, that you deserve to rest a little longer, that you will start tomorrow. But tomorrow rarely comes for those who live inside comfort. The truth is, the life you want exists just beyond what feels easy. Growth begins where comfort ends. Every person faces two invisible wars. The first is the outer war, against circumstances, challenges, and obstacles. The second is the inner war, against the part of you that craves comfort and resists change. The inner war is harder to fight because it feels like protection. Your mind convinces you that avoiding discomfort keeps you safe, but in reality, it keeps you small. Comfort has a seductive rhythm. It tells you to take shortcuts, to lower your standards, to chase instant pleasure instead of long-term fulfillment. It rewards you with temporary relief while robbing you of lasting satisfaction. You stop striving, you stop exploring, and you stop believing that more is possible. Over time, comfort builds invisible walls around you. You call it stability, but it is really stagnation. The war against comfort begins with awareness. You must first see it for what it is, a slow, quiet decay of potential. Comfort feeds on inaction. The longer you stay there, the harder it becomes to leave. That is why breaking free requires courage. You must be willing to disrupt your own peace for the sake of progress. Growth will never feel comfortable at first. It is supposed to stretch you. It is supposed to challenge the old version of you that clings to safety. Most people confuse comfort with happiness. They think being at ease means being fulfilled. But fulfillment comes from progress, not rest. You feel alive when you're expanding, learning, striving. When you are growing, you are proud of yourself. When you are comfortable, you are just existing. The happiest people are not those who avoid challenge, but those who turn it into meaning. If you look closely, everything extraordinary was born from discomfort. Every innovation, every act of courage, every great transformation started when someone stepped beyond what was familiar. The discomfort of uncertainty gave birth to discovery. The discomfort of failure gave birth to mastery. The discomfort of rejection gave birth to confidence. Comfort never creates greatness. Discomfort does. To win the war against comfort, you must start treating it like an enemy in disguise. Every time you hesitate, every time you procrastinate, every time you choose the easy path, ask yourself, is this comfort or alignment? Comfort avoids challenge. Alignment embraces purpose. The difference is simple. Comfort numbs you. Purpose wakes you. The human brain was not designed for modern comfort. It evolved for challenge, survival, and movement. When life becomes too easy, your mind creates its own problems to fill the void. That is why people who have everything still feel restless or anxious. Comfort dulls the edge of your instincts. It turns strength into softness and focus into distraction. The cure is not more ease, but more purpose. The key to mastering discomfort is to build a relationship with it. Instead of running from it, learn to respect it. Each time you lean into discomfort, you expand your capacity for growth. What once felt unbearable becomes familiar, even empowering. That is how confidence is built. Not by avoiding fear, but by facing it so many times that it loses power over you. Start small. Take cold showers. Wake up earlier than you want to. Speak when silence feels safer. Do the thing that makes your chest tighten. Each act of discomfort is a small rebellion against complacency. Over time, you will begin to crave challenge, not comfort. Your threshold for stress will rise. Your tolerance for mediocrity will shrink. You will start to see struggle as fuel instead of friction. Comfort kills dreams slowly. It convinces you to postpone action until conditions are perfect. It tells you that you need more time, more resources, more clarity. But perfection is an illusion. There will never be a perfect moment. The perfect time is always now, in the middle of uncertainty, in the midst of doubt. The people who win are not the ones who wait for the right conditions, but the ones who act in spite of them. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you reinforce the identity of someone who retreats. Every time you choose challenge over comfort, you reinforce the identity of someone who grows. This battle happens daily, in small moments, when the alarm goes off, when the temptation appears, when fear whispers, "Stay where you are." Each decision is a vote for your future. The war against comfort is not about rejecting rest or pleasure. It is about balance. Rest should restore you, not restrain you. Pleasure should reward effort, not replace it. Comfort has its place, but it should be earned, not worshipped. When you rest after giving your all, it feels fulfilling. When you rest after doing nothing, it feels empty. The difference lies in purpose. The world rewards those who can stay steady when others crumble, those who can act when comfort calls, those who understand that success is not built on ease, but on endurance. To build that endurance, you must train your mind daily. Push your limits intentionally. Seek discomfort on purpose. Every challenge you face voluntarily prepares you for the ones you cannot control. When you live with intention, discomfort becomes your ally. It sharpens your mind, strengthens your spirit, and humbles your ego. It reminds you that you are alive, still growing, still capable of more. Comfort tells you that you have arrived. Discomfort reminds you that you are still becoming. This is the paradox of comfort. The more you chase it, the less you feel it. True comfort comes not from avoiding difficulty, but from mastering it. When you can handle anything life throws at you, you carry peace within you. You stop needing the world to be easy because you have become strong. So fight the war against comfort every single day. Wake up and choose effort over ease, progress over perfection, purpose over pleasure. Each time you do, you expand your strength, your resilience, and your capacity for greatness. You become unshakable. You stop living in the shadow of who you could be and step fully into who you are meant to become. The war never ends, but neither does your potential. The more you push against comfort, the freer you become. Because true freedom is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to move through it without losing your will. Chapter 10. Becoming Unstoppable. There comes a point in every person's journey when they realize that the goal is not just to achieve, but to become. You do not become unstoppable by luck, talent, or timing. You become unstoppable when you stop negotiating with weakness, when you stop retreating at the first sign of fear, and when you stop waiting for the world to hand you permission to move forward. You become unstoppable when your identity, your habits, and your purpose fuse into one clear direction that cannot be shaken. Being unstoppable is not about never failing. It's about refusing to stay down. It is about rising again and again, no matter how heavy the fall. The world respects resilience more than perfection. People who cannot be stopped are not the strongest or the smartest. They are simply the ones who refuse to quit. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every obstacle becomes fuel. Every pain becomes power. The truth is, life will always test you. It will push you to your limits and beyond. There will be days when you question your path, when doubt creeps in, when you feel like all your effort is for nothing. But being unstoppable means you move anyway. You act through uncertainty. You trust that even the hardest moments are shaping you into someone capable of more. Unstoppable people are not driven by emotion. They are guided by commitment. They understand that progress is built on discipline, not motivation. They have trained their minds to keep moving forward even when they do not feel like it. Every time they choose consistency over comfort, they sharpen their edge. Every time they do the hard thing when no one is watching, they build invisible strength. Over time, that strength becomes unbreakable. To become unstoppable, you must first understand what stops you. Most people are not defeated by failure. They are defeated by hesitation. They overthink, they delay, and they talk themselves out of action. Fear does not kill dreams. Paralysis does. The cure for hesitation is movement. Action dissolves doubt. Once you move even a little, clarity begins to return. Motion reminds you that you are capable, that you are alive, and that you are still in control. The unstoppable mindset is built on ownership. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop waiting for the right time, the right people, or the right opportunity. You realize that no one is coming to save you, and that realization sets you free. Ownership is power. When you take full responsibility for your results, you also claim full control over your future. There will always be people who underestimate you. Let them. There will always be moments when you feel unseen. Use them. The unstoppable person does not need validation because they have found meaning in the work itself. They know that the journey is the reward. Each step forward, no matter how small, is proof of progress. To become unstoppable, you must learn how to master your mind. Your thoughts will always try to protect you by keeping you in the familiar. But comfort is not your friend, growth is. Every time your mind whispers that it is too hard, remind yourself that it is supposed to be. Ease does not change you. Pressure does. Each challenge you face is a test of alignment. Are you truly committed, or are you still waiting for things to get easier? The path to becoming unstoppable requires what few are willing to give: relentless persistence. Not the kind that burns out, but the kind that endures. It is not about going fast. It is about never stopping. Some days you will move with fire. Other days you will crawl. But as long as you move, you are winning. The pace does not matter. The direction does. Unstoppable people understand that success is not a straight line. It is a messy process of progress and pain, of wins and losses, of breakthroughs and breakdowns. The difference is that they keep going when others stop. They know that pain is temporary, but quitting makes it permanent. They know that every delay, every detour, and every failure still moves them closer to mastery. You do not need to have everything figured out to be unstoppable. You just need to have enough courage to keep showing up. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It is faith in your ability to handle it. You build that faith by taking action even when the outcome is uncertain. You stop waiting for perfect conditions because you realize that perfection is the enemy of progress. Becoming unstoppable is also about protecting your energy. You cannot rise if you are surrounded by people who drain your drive. Be intentional with your circle. Spend time with those who challenge you to be better, not those who make excuses for staying the same. Energy is contagious. Protect yours fiercely. To be unstoppable, you must become a student of life. Never stop learning, never stop evolving, and never stop growing. The moment you think you know it all, you begin to decline. Curiosity keeps you sharp. Humility keeps you grounded. Growth keeps you alive. There is a moment that defines every unstoppable person, the moment they stop being afraid of starting over. They realize that nothing they lose can destroy them, because everything they need is already within them. When you understand that, you become truly free. You stop clinging to the past. You stop fearing change. You start living with purpose. Being unstoppable is not about being fearless. It is about being courageous enough to act in the presence of fear. Fear loses its power the moment you face it. Courage is built one act at a time. You do not wait for it. You create it. Every time you act despite fear, you grow stronger. The final step in becoming unstoppable is surrendering to the process. You stop trying to control every outcome. You learn to trust your effort, your discipline, and your vision. You understand that patience is part of power. You do not rush your growth because you know that every struggle is sculpting you into something greater. One day, you will look back and realize that the person you became was forged in fire. Every late night, every rejection, and every moment you wanted to quit but did not, shaped you. That is what it means to be unstoppable, to be the kind of person who turns pain into wisdom, fear into focus, and struggle into strength. So keep moving forward, even when it hurts, even when it is slow, even when no one believes in you yet. You are building momentum, one act of courage at a time. You are writing a story that will outlast doubt, fear, and failure. You are becoming the kind of person who cannot be broken because you have already rebuilt yourself from the inside out. Becoming unstoppable is not about reaching a destination. It is about becoming the kind of person who cannot be stopped by circumstances, emotion, or time. You become the storm that moves mountains, the fire that refuses to die, and the light that shines even in the darkest moments. You are no longer waiting for the right moment. You are creating it. You are no longer asking what if. You are saying I will. You are no longer chasing permission. You are choosing power. That is what it means to be unstoppable.